Hello, my fellow X-Men fans. It's Jerry Rasco back with you today. And as I just said, we're going to talk about the X-Men. We're looking back on X-Men issue number 9 today. This is a super fun issue. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. There is a fun crossover, one of the first big crossovers that we've seen, at least for this series. And yeah, I'm very excited to go through this one with you today. As always, if you are a subscriber, thank you so much. Again, we are over 400 subscribers. We're on our way towards that 1,000 goal. That is all thanks to all of you. So thank you so much for clicking that subscribe button and becoming part of the community that we're building here. In the meantime, if you're not a subscriber, let me tell you what clicking that button gets you. And that is you get submitted to win free artwork. No purchase necessary, no shipping costs. All you have to do is be a subscriber when we hit 1,000 subscribers, and you could be randomly drawn to win one of these pieces of artwork that we have here. And we have one piece for each of the review series that I have on the channel. So we have, of course, the X-Men. That's what we're talking about today. We have the Avengers. That's one of the other new series that we have here on the channel. We have an upcoming series, so Captain America will be another review series. I'm waiting until he makes his debut in the Avengers series that we're doing, and then we'll be looking at Captain America's solo series. Another upcoming series, Fantastic Four, so we're going to be up to 6 different review series of these Marvel comics, which is super fun. We have, of course, the Incredible Hulk, and last but not least, we have Spider-Man, the series that kicked it all off. So if you are interested in seeing the history and reviewing the artwork of all of these series, you can go back to the playlist and check them all out. Spider-Man is up to, I think, episode 77 as of the recording of this video. So there's a lot of content there for you to go back and check out. And then some of the other ones like the X-Men, the Avengers, are very new. We don't have as much content there. So if you want to jump in at the beginning, this is a great spot. And of course, as I mentioned, there's 2 more to come. So not only do you want to click that subscribe button, maybe think about clicking the notification button too. And then that way you'll see when those new videos come out. So with all that out of the way, let's get over to the comic. Because again, this is a good one and I really can't wait to review it with you. Okay, so this is the cover to X-Men number 9, and as you can see, this is crossing over with the Mighty Avengers. So again, as of the recording of this series, the Avengers series that we're doing has not reached this point in history yet. We've only got 2 issues of the Avengers out so far. So Captain America, as on the Avengers side, is not a member yet, so this takes place a little later in that run, which is perfectly fine. The comics obviously did not come out all at the same time, and so we're dealing with that. It's a pretty busy cover. I mean, you've got a lot of figures here. You have your 5 X-Men, you've got your 4 Avengers, and then the Wasp is also part of the team and not featured in the particular artwork here. But yeah, you've got a 5-on-5 battle royal. And then underground, we have Professor X confronting this character Lucifer. That's sort of been hinted around at for the past couple issues. I like the idea, like Xavier in the story is legitimately underground. So to draw the ground and then sort of this underneath part makes sense. If you don't know that, if you haven't already read the comic and you looked at this cover, you might think that it's broken into 2 stories, that there's a X-Men versus Avengers story, and then there's a Professor X versus this villain Lucifer story. That is not the case. It's all one plot. But when you have other comics like Tales to Astonish, which is what we're reviewing right now in the Hulk series, it is a book that has 2 stories. So I could see where that could be a little confusing or misleading to the reader when you're just looking at the cover. The corner box art has been fixed, and what I mean by that is it features the X-Men, but it's corrected Jean Grey's mask. So for 2 issues, she went to a couple different mask options. She's now back to the total cowl, the same way you have with Angel, Beast, etc. And so that artwork has been corrected to reflect what's in the comic. So that's kind of a nice touch there. Um, I like the bold contour lines on this cover as well. So contour lines, that's the outside line that shapes the form of an object that you're drawing. So when you look at things like the Beast, is a good example here. I think some of Thor. There's really dark, bold outlines. The ones around Lucifer down at the lower part of the cover here, and the way that these lines are very thick, very dark. Same thing around Xavier, with much finer, lighter lines in the background equipment. Helps the characters pop off the page that way, which is really nice. It's a technique that I use myself in my own art, and I really do like it quite a bit. So yeah, and then the last thing, we'll talk about this crazy wheelchair design. We'll see that more in the comic, but this is wild. So of course, Professor Xavier is paralyzed from the waist down and needs a wheelchair, but how do you do that if you need to go cave spelunking? Well, we will see this very creative design in action. So as I always tell you at this stage of the game, this is a scanned PDF copy. So that's where we have all of those original ads, the coloring effects, the page turns, everything here is exactly the way that it was in 1965 when this was originally published. So I love this format. It allows us to zoom in, look at specific things, go back and forth through the pages very easily, without having to worry about camera angles, especially with modern comics. I've seen a lot of folks who have tried to review modern comics that are printed on a glossy paper, and they're constantly complaining about the light reflecting. We don't have any of that here with this digital format. So I really, really do enjoy it. We have here our creative team. This is the same team that we've had for quite some time here on the book. So very comfortable with them. We've got Stan Lee writing, Jack Kirby penciling, Chic Stone as your inker. I think that's great. And they are really, again, starting to blend and merge together, which is very common when you have a pencil or inker pair. You have to begin to understand the language of each other. So when Jack Kirby is, doing his pencils, if he scribbles something, does that mean it's supposed to be inked that way with sort of broken up lines, or is that supposed to be solid black? And then as well, the penciler understanding, if I do this, this is how the inker is going to translate that into black and white. So I will continue to work that way, or I'll change it because I know they would misinterpret it. Once you start to get those understandings of each other, the flow becomes much better, and then you start to get more of a merging of the two art styles, as opposed to there is definitely a penciler style and an inking style. So we're starting to get this merged style by this stage. In terms of splash pages, not my favorite. I've said this in many, many videos. I am not a big fan of this type of splash page because I feel like it wastes real estate. In this particular book, including a pinup at the very end and amongst the letter pages, there are there's less than 27 pages of art, because I do a page count in my notes, take copious notes, and I count the pages where there's ads and stuff, so I know like page 7 is this, page 8 is that, etc. So realistically, there's a lot less than 27 pages of artwork. And so why are we wasting a page on what could be a cover, right? This, if you took this and made it the cover image, it works just as well. There's no, reason to change it up. So I'd rather jump into the story, but that's neither here nor there. In terms of a single image kind of telling the story, you've got the two teams facing off. You've got Lucifer with this. He's created a giant bomb, spoilers, underground. So he's in the center of this sort of earth sphere type thing. The circular composition works really well. Xavier's face in the middle works well. Again, it's an actually really good cover. So I don't feel like we need it as a splash page. We open up with a ship sailing in the North Atlantic, and finding an iceberg last minute. We're like, uh-oh, we've got Titanic level issues. The first thing I thought of, and again, this is my age showing, I'll see if I can find an image of this person to put here to compare. But this crew member of the ship, the face immediately reminded me of actor Don Knotts. Again, I'll see if I can find an image to put here so you can compare yourself. But combination of the eyes and the lips just very much reminded me of Don Knotts, which I think was very funny. So back to the comic, we've got the iceberg, but it's destroyed. And of course, we know that's Cyclops, right? And what we're getting out of this is people showing off their powers. And it's one of those things, the mantra, it can be good, it can be bad. The mantra is every comic is someone's first comic. So there's a chance that somebody has never opened a single X-Men comic up to now. And so if you don't, how do you know who's who and what they can do and that kind of stuff? So we've got Cyclops using his optic blast to destroy an entire iceberg, but we also establish he has limits to his powers. And then we've got Iceman making him some ice to cool him off. Jean Grey using her... I almost said telepathy, because they say telepathy a lot in these early days. It's not telepathy, it's telekinesis. So she's able to move things with her mind telekinetically, which she does. And then Beast is jumping around, getting him something to drink, and you can see Angel's wings there. So again, we've sort of established what people can do and stuff like that. Story-wise, we also get more of the Jean is pining away for Scott. Scott is secretly also pining away for Jean, but the two of them won't talk, and so neither knows, right? But again, overall, really good. I like the camera angles moving around are nice. In terms of showing off the characters and what they can do, that's fine too. And then they're alerted by Professor Xavier, who has been on this sort of independent mission of his to deal with a character that he's simply referred to as Lucifer, and that's where the X-Men are heading right now to see if they can assist him. For this, I would have liked to have seen two things here in this panel. Number one, I would have liked to have seen the colors reversed. I think it makes more sense to have Xavier in yellow as he's projecting his thoughts to the X-Men, and then having Cyclops colored normally. The other thing I noted here is there is a tangent with these fingers and his hand. So tangent, I've expressed this numerous times. I have my apologies to you longtime fans. Contour lines, we talked about those earlier, right? Around the hand, this finger, they end and form a perfect line connection with the lines of his mouth. And so what it does is it just flattens out that image. It eliminates the overlapping that would show us that the hand is in front of his mouth. And so it's just something that when your brain is putting together these clues on what makes something three-dimensional, that breaks that logic. And all of a sudden now the illusion becomes shaky. And so that's obviously not what we're trying to do as we're drawing what's supposed to be the illusion of three dimensions on a two-dimensional plane. I also did want to point out there's a coloring error here. This is Jean, and she's colored in the same yellow as the chair, so her hair should be red. Her shirt is yellow, but her hair is miscolored there. So that happens from time to time, and again, stuff like that doesn't take me out of the story. But again, as I've been mentioning lately, my job here is to be nitpicky. I've taken it upon myself to say, hey, let's go through these and review the artwork, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And so if there's an issue like the tangent in his hand, again, it doesn't really change your story. It doesn't affect your enjoyment of reading the comic. But when we're talking about things to learn from in regards to how do you make the art of a comic book, that's something that you want to avoid. So we cut to Xavier. He has identified everybody. Hey, he's here, and he's going down this cave to this underground lair. and he has got this crazy, wacky wheelchair. My note I wrote, this thing feels like a toy design. Like this is the kind of thing you'd have your action figure in. And look, it's got, all these gadgets. It's got, arms to catch it so it doesn't fall in the pit, or it can be lifted by this crane that can connect and disconnect, and it's got motorized treads and all that kind of stuff. So to me, it just really, like, it just dawned on me, like, it just felt like a very 80s toy gimmick. Obviously they were not making toys of these characters at the time, but it's pretty fun. This is Lucifer, and he is there, and he is aware of Xavier's presence at his base, and is trying to destroy him. So this trap here of dropping him into a pit of, we'll say, lava or fire, that didn't work. So now he's sending a dust devil after him, and I think it's very funny that they actually take a moment to note that what a dust devil is a idiomatic name for Western desert dust storm. Yet clearly it is very contained within this sort of cyclone looking pattern or device, which I think is very funny. It sucks him up, carries him away, and then solidifies into like a cage. Really funny. And it knows enough to go after the one guy, suck him up, and then turn around and go back to base. This is one of those things sometimes where the villains create these crazy traps or crazy things, devices, weapons, whatever, and you're like, if you just took that and marketed this and managed to sell this kind of thing, you would be a gazillionaire. There's no point you don't have to worry about taking over the world, because there's no forethought. Once you take over the world, what are you going to do with it? Like, it's a lot of work. I don't get it. But then again, I guess I'm not a megalomaniac. Yeah, I'm not a megalomaniac. Xavier escapes from this because he has a sidearm, which is nice. It's shown here on the belt. It doesn't come from nowhere. It is right here on his belt. So I appreciate that. And I wrote, wow, Xavier is packing. He's packing heat. He recognizes this is danger. And yes, he has his mental powers, but he's not relying on them. He's a smart guy. So there we go. We cut away from the two of them. And just to FYI, we will get back to... Oh, no, wait. I did do it here. The design of Lucifer. So, this is... It's okay. I noted in my notes, I felt like it was very plain by Jack Kirby standards. What I mean by that is, usually when you see costume or character designs by Jack Kirby, they have tons of extra, whether that's patterns, boots, straps, things. Think about your characters like all the Asgardians in Thor, in the Thor comic, or much later we see him in his Fourth World comics from DC Comics, characters like Darkseid and Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, and how he draws their designs. It's always these weird geometric patterns and shapes and things of that nature. We see none of that here. It's very straightforward. Bodysuit, little bit of a torso kind of wrap over a tunic, pants the same color, boots and gloves with no decoration. There's no pattern. There's no edging. There's no nothing. Think about like Magneto in the X-Men run. He's got that collar that comes around where the cape connects and it buckles. His helmet has this elaborate design around the edging. This guy has none of that. He's got a funky helmet, a little bit of a chin beard, and that's kind of it. So interesting design, but again, very plain for what I normally would attribute to a Jack Kirby costume design. So let's see. As I mentioned, so we're gonna cut away. The X-Men have arrived to help, and fortunately or unfortunately, so have the Avengers. And Thor has arrived. Interesting, showing him landing like this, kind of horizontally, instead of coming down vertically, like I would think. But an interesting pose nonetheless, and actually works better for the small size of the panel. I've talked about this before. In these old pages, these individual drawings, these panels on the page are probably 5 inches by 5 inches. So drawing Thor, drawing the bridge, drawing the X-Men in the background walking away, if he was to land vertically, you'd lose a lot because the figure just wouldn't fit within that panel. Here he's kind of almost corner to corner, so we're using the maximum amount of space available. So that's a good use to have him landing more horizontally because, again, it fits the panel. I also mentioned that Mjolnir can apparently do anything. His hammer is able to detect evil from America and follow them here. So his hammer is an evil detector. And I'm curious as to what would trigger it off. So is it sensitive enough to pick up like a car being stolen, or does it have to be truly world-threatening evil? What is it that would attract his attention? But either way, this is a contrivance to get the Avengers and the X-Men in the same place at the same time, right? And yeah. So this is a cute little comedy bit here of the Avengers stopping this tourist driving by and just being like, hey, there's something dangerous here. You should not, dilly-dally. You should get going. And they all take their turn telling him. And finally, he's just like, freaks out and takes off. And which is funny, right? The very comic expression of the driver looking at first Giant Man standing over his car, then Thor, then Iron Man and Captain America, finally the Wasp, and it's too much. It's pretty funny. And then he reaches his group of kids, which he thinks are normal kids, and he tells them like what's going on, and immediately Angel's like, you better, Scott tells him you better scout, and Angel takes off his shirt and jacket, frees his wings, and takes off, and this guy's like, I can't even deal with this anymore. So good comedy bit there. I think that's pretty funny. Let's see here. Yeah. So in this one, so we cut back to Xavier, and this is actually something I just recently talked about in a Spider-Man issue with John Romita Sr. as the artist. I almost said Junior. Senior as the artist. And he does the same kind of thing here, which I don't care for. Let me explain. What I mean is we have a scene, and you have to think of your comic scenes the same way, if you're creating this comic, the same way you do how you would have, in my opinion, television or movies. When you cut from one scene to the other, there is something to alert the viewer that this is a change in scene. Sometimes it is a wipe. Right? There's a screen that kind of goes like this. There could be in television, there could be a commercial break. And now when we come back, we're somewhere else and we're in a different scene. I mean, even in theater, you would have, this curtains can close, change the background, curtains open, new scene. So we understand that. Here in the comics, I find artists don't do that. You go from the X-Men and this guy in the car and then trying to figure out what's going on and where is Professor X to Xavier and Lucifer underground in his lair. So there's a couple ways you can make the transition. One is you can do it on a page turn, and that means this right here. So if this is the last panel here and we turn the page and we see Xavier and Lucifer, that is a scene change because it's happened on the page turn. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is visually. You can have from one panel to the next as it's changing scenes, something visually that ties them together. So the example I gave is like, what if somebody was sort of, putting their head down and they're in deep shadow and they're thinking hard. Then you change the scene and somebody in a different scene is in the same pose, but it's a different person. That's a thematic. Actually, that's also, it's both. It's a thematic and visual change of scenes. So those are the other two ways you can do it. Page turn, you can do it visually. So the image from one at the end of one scene to the image of the next kind of mirrors each other. That's one way to do it. And then again, thematically, meaning what if, the last thing that's said here is, I hope Professor Xavier's doing better than we are. Boom, now you cut to Professor Xavier and he's not. So those are kind of three ways to do a transition from scene to scene. None of those are done here. So I don't like, personally, I'm not a big fan of just this narration box telling you it's in a different scene. I don't like that. I'd much rather use one of those other three methods. That all said, story-wise, there's a giant bomb. This guy, Lucifer, apparently has set this up as a doomsday device so that if something happens to him, it will destroy the world. But again, I don't know. I don't think he ever actually says exactly what he wants. He has a plan for power, but I'm assuming he wants to take over the world, but he doesn't really explain how or why. That all said, I do want to cut to this bottom panel because there's an issue here that doesn't work for me. And it actually plays out in the next page, and you'll see. So he's explaining what's going on, why he can't be stopped. If you stop his heartbeat, the bomb will go off. So now nobody can stop him, and he is going to take out the X-Men before they can come down and challenge him. So he goes to this machine. And the part that doesn't work for me is the coloring. So his color has turned into sort of this drab, brownish olive color. And there's a machine that goes in front of his face that's extremely hard to see because the gray tone used is very, very close to this brownish gray, green, whatever tone. So I saw him standing in front of these machines over here, but I didn't realize that there was one right in front of his face until I really zoomed in to look at it. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So that's obviously, problematic. We don't want that to happen. So how do you fix that? Color the two things differently. Either make his armor a different color, or this is fake sci-fi machines. You can see some of it over here is blue. You can make the whole thing blue in front of him. That would have helped it stand out a little bit. You can make it green or whatever you want just to make it stand out. It doesn't have to be gray on top of another tone of gray. That just, again, sort of doesn't sell it. And now when you turn the page, we see that same machine, that same shape, and the weird shape of his helmet, but there's no details. There's no eyes. We don't see the cut around the mouth. And so at first I thought, because if you go back, I thought it was the bomb, because the bomb that he's made is sort of in that same shape. And it didn't dawn on me that, no, this is a machine that's tapping into his brain and he's sending some sort of, as he calls it, an ionic ray at the X-Men with his mind using this machinery. So again, it just wasn't clear. That's where, you could, a couple of things. Clearing it up on the page before so that we recognize this shape of this mechanism, adding the eyes and the mouth maybe within this lighting could help. So that's a few things. And then Xavier realizes he has to warn the X-Men. And so he leaves his body, his mind leaves his body and races to tell them. And so he's racing ions. Okay. Question, why couldn't he alert them instantly? We can see he's able to communicate with them from vast distances. His mental projection doesn't have to be there. When he was on his wheelchair, his power wheelchair, he was talking to the X-Men and he didn't have to separate his mind from his body. So why can't he just alert them instantly? That part I did not get. But I mean, it adds to the drama of will he get there in time or not. So they get warned. They duck the thing, the blast, the ray, whatever you want to call it, and now they get suited up. And I think it's cute. The Beast suit up idea here is pretty good, right? He heads off, and next thing you know, he's in his X-Men uniform and swinging around the trees. Same thing, you see Iceman icing up and then sliding off. This is the one that gets me a little bit where I'm like, really? And again, we've seen everybody use their powers. We don't exactly need this. This could have been cut into 2 or 3 panels. And we could have saved some real estate maybe for bigger panels later during a fight, or adding in something that I think would be necessary. Jean is in her costume, and he's like, oh no, there's a hole. And so instead of... there's not enough time to sidestep. So she telekinetically moves a piece of wood over the hole so she can step on that. Lift yourself up over. Jump. I mean, it's... step in the hole and then step out of the hole. I mean, it's just a ridiculous example, just as another time to remind everybody, even though we saw it earlier, hey, she can move things with her mind. We know that. So not great there. Let's see. These are really nice camera moves. So we've got the team lined up here pretty well. And then, boom, here comes Thor. So I like that. We're turning to the side. Nice turn of the head from Iceman as Thor steps around the tree there. And then we cut around and we see the rest of the Avengers arriving. Thor's hammer is still sensing all the evilness underground. But very, very good wide shot to get both teams together. Now we cut back in, and this is a really good image of Thor holding his hammer out. I like it quite a bit. Good foreshortening on the arm. So foreshortening, again, is when something is coming towards you in space, it appears shorter than it would if it was on a single plane. And that is because it's just literally the object in front of you is covering parts of itself, so you can't see it. So it's where, my hand is covering my arm where it's here, right? So that's what we've done here. The hand is covering the wrist, the forearm is covering up the bicep is covering part of the shoulder, etc. So that's good foreshortening there, and a very nice face. I like this move by Cyclops. So so basically Xavier's like, listen, they're gonna come in, they don't understand what's going on. Now they could all explain. This is always the key to every superhero fight. They could just go, hang on, time out. There's a bad guy down here. He's got a bomb. It's linked to his heart. If you guys go in and trash him, there's a chance it could go off. Our boss is dealing with it. Right? The Avengers are cool, and they're not they're not super upset. They're like, okay, you guys are heroes, it's cool. But no, Xavier's like, you have to stop him no matter what. So now that they have to fight. So again, it's the contrivance just to get the two teams to fight, because that's what all the fans always speculate. Well, who would win? Who's better? Who's tougher? Who's going to beat who? And as fans, we all love this stuff, right? Cyclops blasts Mjolnir out of Thor's hand, but causes it to ricochet into Iron Man. That is awesome. And that is Cyclops right there. It's one of the things I always liked about him, is that his powers, and when he uses that sort of reflection where he'll bounce his beam off of other angles and stuff, I think that is super cool. So this whole thing is really, really nice. So Angel tries to pick up the hammer, not realizing it's enchanted, and he can't budge it. In the background, we see Captain America. He's got his shield ready to go. And in the next panel, he flings it, Angel ducks it, and Beast catches it. This sequence of these top 4 panels are a masterclass in basic storytelling. excellent action. You've got motion lines, but nothing crazy. Everything flows from one panel to the next. I'm not confused. The first 4 panels here are awesome. The 5th one gives me a little bit of a The Beast catches Captain America's shield with his feet. Okay, fair enough. That's the Beast. That's what he does. What I don't understand is what is happening here. So he's laying on his stomach on the ground. The shield is still between his feet. He's reaching back. So is he going to grab it with his hands behind? Just let go with your feet. I'm not sure what is accomplished. He almost looks like he's tied up by the shield somehow. I don't understand. But I do like Giant Man's hand reaching in and the extremely thick contour line of the larger hand. I think that is a really nice touch there. And then he lifts the 2 things apart, the shield and the Beast, right? So that's really good. And then this is great. We have an awesome big splash here. Not a full splash page, but pretty close, of the 2 teams battling. And this is a perfect way to do it. This is a great down shot. So we are floating up above the battle so that we can take in everything and we look down and see it. I think it's phenomenal. Go Iceman. I mean, to use his powers to create this solid block around Giant Man. And I like the way it has thickness. It wraps around. You can see it sort of wrapping around his arm and the way it would form around his body. Really, really good. I like that a lot. This pose of the angel is excellent. The way it's coming at us, right? So he's going away from us, but the twist of the upper torso versus the twist of the lower body works really, really well. The legs are done. The foreshortening and perspective on the legs is excellent. This is a really, really great pose there. And just awesome stuff. So now we're starting to get that. Now we break it into sort of some one-on-ones. Wasp is trying to attack Jean. Iron Man and Beast kind of collide midair. Now we cut back to Underground and Xavier and Lucifer. This is a good transition because this is a page turn. This is exactly what I was talking about. So that's excellent stuff. So Xavier finally uses his mental powers to knock Lucifer unconscious, which shouldn't affect his heart. So that's great. He's not trying to kill him. He's just trying to make him go night-night, basically, which he does. And yeah, so they're good. So now it's a matter of he needs the X-Men to help him sort of defuse the bomb. So we cut back. Now this is again a bad transition. So I'll go with the thematics. So this is what they say. If only I could find a way to remove the bomb's fuse, I need the X-Men's assistance. Oh, the X-Men are busy. Okay. He referenced the team. That's not so bad. It's not the greatest thematic scene change, but it's better than nothing. It's certainly not a visual and it's not a page turn, but it's not horrible. I like Jean using her mind to keep, throwing rocks basically at Iron Man. I don't know how much they would hurt, but obviously they're keeping him busy. Iceman has blockaded himself literally in a block of ice that Thor's like, yeah, listen, this is nothing to me. When Xavier reaches out to Thor. And I think that's pretty cool. Of anybody who's used to hearing the mental communications of another being, but Thor, right? Odin does this kind of stuff all the time. It's not magic, but it kind of, he's like, oh yeah. And in fact, he mentions it's a voice, but it's not an Asgardian voice. So he's used to it. So the person to reach out to being Thor makes a lot of sense. And then this is awesome. It's very subtle, but this sitting pose is really good. And the reason is you feel the weight on those shins. He's positioned correctly so that the elbow is hitting where you would think the top of your thigh or your knee would be. and he's leaning over his legs. His hammer is touching the ground. It's just a very natural pose there as he listens to Professor X, which I think is absolutely great. And of course, he's like, "Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I feel like you're telling me the truth. We'll get this all stopped." And then very nonchalantly, he just kind of goes and knocks down the ice block like it's nothing. And then Thor calls off the fighting and is like, "Hey guys, you guys got this covered. This is your thing. We can't do it." The Avengers all agree. There's no reason they couldn't all help. Like, hey, I got an idea. Maybe taking Iron Man and having him help defuse the bomb might not be a bad idea. Again, why not all hands on deck? But I get it. This is a X-Men book. It's not an Avengers book. So we've had our fun of what happens when these two teams fight versus a real true team up per se. So there you go. So now the Avengers are out of the picture, and Xavier is explaining to them what's needed. Again, this is really, really good composition of each panel and good camera movement. I talk about cameras all the time. Again, just imagine as you're reading the comic and you're viewing these images, we, the reader, essentially are the camera taking pictures, and this is your snapshot of that moment. So if we are like here, for example, this on number 4, as the angel is flying down this cave shaft or whatever you want to call it, that is an upshot. We are low looking up. That's how the camera would be positioned to get this image. So those are moved around a lot. We've got a nice kind of baseline at the top. We pan out to have a wider shot to see them going into the cave. Now we cut back to Xavier. We have a nice close-up of him working the mechanism that will bring the X-Men down into the Lucifer's secret lair. And so the whole thing is really good. This last one includes what's called a Dutch angle. That is, again, where, like in the panel next to it, in panel 5, you could see this horizon line where the floor is flat and is perpendicular to everything else, right? It's a 90-degree. Here, it's turned slightly at an angle, and it's turned towards the motion of the figures, which is very important. If you tilted it the other way, it would look like they were struggling to go up, right? Because we think of up as incline. Think about walking up a hill is harder than walking down a hill. And subconsciously, we feel that through the imagery. So if you want your characters to feel like they're moving fast, more energy, you take that Dutch angle in the direction of where they're moving, and that's exactly what we have here, which is great. We get Professor X and Cyclops working together to find the fuse so that they can defuse the bomb, and as they're going, the bomb gets triggered. Not because of anybody doing anything wrong. Apparently, being unconscious makes Lucifer's heart stop beating automatically. I don't understand why his heartbeat would be getting weaker just because he's unconscious. Maybe he's an alien. Maybe he is a monster. Maybe he doesn't have a human heart. I don't know, but that seems weird to me. I really like the lighting effect here as the bomb comes online. However, again, like the one earlier with the Lucifer and the mask, I'd like to see more that this is Professor Xavier. Eyes, those telltale kind of angled up eyebrows would help. Maybe seeing enough of his clothing to understand who it is. I think that could help there. And now this explains what's going to happen. The bomb is going to destroy Antarctica. It's going to flood the ocean with ice and water, and that's going to cause the destruction of every coast on the planet. So they must absolutely do this. So Xavier uses his mental powers to identify the right thing, which is the fuse, and then Cyclops uses his power to do a very tight pinpoint blast to where he can destroy the fuse so it can't set off the whole bomb. So there we go. And they've done it together. Now this, I've commented a couple times about how Cyclops is drawn. So later, spoilers if you're not aware of X-Men history, Cyclops is going to get a different visor. So this visor is part of the hood, and it's just kind of straight across his face. It, depending on how it's drawn, it's either straight across like this, or sometimes it does bend, but it's kind of here. And my problem has been when you want to draw his face in 3/4 view, which is exactly what we have here. So that means this is straight on, this is profile, in the middle is 3/4 view. And in 3/4 view, one side is closer. You're going to see more of the eye, the cheekbone, the jaw, all that stuff. The other side is going to be hinted at with the cut of your eyebrow. Your cheek is going to jut out slightly and come down. Some of it's going to be blocked by your nose, etc. This is a good way to do it. What was happening before is they were sort of drawing a profile view of his face, but taking the visor and kind of trying to make it 3/4 view, like it was coming across like this, and it didn't work. This is the right way to do it. And the important thing is how you draw the rest of that face. But then you see over here like this, is this just the edge, or does it come out and bend around? It sort of changes from panel to panel, to be perfectly frank. When he gets his more modern visor, that definitely is fixed. So there you go. So now Xavier revives Lucifer, lets him know, hey, we beat you. And, you know, they try to do the villain thing like, oh, you thwarted me this time, but next time. And Xavier reminds him like, hey, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been paralyzed for all this time. I'm not done with you yet, but for now you can go. And it's the X-Men motto of, we'll never hurt anybody with our powers. And I'm like, you don't have to hurt the guy. It's not like nobody says you have to kill the guy. Like, why don't you take him to the authorities? Why don't you release him to the United Nations for punishment? Why don't you, I mean, there's a number of things. Why don't you hand him over to the Avengers? Just add the Avengers, let them deal with him. Hand him over to S.H.I.E.L.D. There's all kinds of people that could help. Instead, they just let him go and like, we'll deal with that. That's future X-Men's problem. That's not our problem. Very weird choice there. But yeah, it does not work for me. So that's the story. But as I mentioned, here's your letters page. We have a pinup of Marvel Girl. And we're going to talk about this a little bit. I don't know. I'm assuming that this is also Jack Kirby, but there's enough mistakes here that make me think it isn't. That this is somebody, what the term we use is aping some Jack Kirby style in a way and not doing it well. So here's what I mean by this. There's a lot of things going on here. Number one, she is way too big. If she was to step back into this hallway, she is hitting her head. The walls should be far higher. You could still see the ceiling. That's fine. You can still do the perspective work. But this just does not make sense spatially. She's way too big for how you've drawn the space. That's number one. Number two, hands and feet are way too small for this figure. Your feet, for example, their human proportions are kind of the same. There's always a little fluctuation. Everybody's different. But for the most part, I'll give you an example of something. If you take your shoe, let's take the shoe you wear every day, and you put it up against your arm, it is going to be the same distance from your wrist to your elbow. This is the length of your foot from heel to toe. That's proportions. Things in the human body aren't just random sizes. Everything is in relation to other things. The distance between your eyes from point to point is supposed to be one eye. Um, the let me see what else. Technically, the distance from you can't see, but from fingertip to fingertip should be pretty close to your height. This is where athletes and stuff who have a longer, they call it wingspan, than their height, they can excel at sports sometimes because of that. But that's the whole point, is your body's in proportion to itself. And these feet are way too small. Those bottom of that shin to ankle is way too thin. It becomes a pencil. The lower leg is far too long. If this is your knee, this is your calf, your ankle should start somewhere in here ish, not this far down. So it's just really odd. This arm, again, far too long. Your forearm, like, it should probably end about here, and then you would have wrist and hand. And then there's little things like, so again, just to scale, this table is far too low. There's she's using her powers to pick up a vase, a box, a photo. Why would you have a table that is lower than my knees off the ground? What good is that, right? So that, again, tells you your scale and size isn't right. Costume wise, this shoulder, you can see this is right. The yellow, the arms and shoulders that come out from sort of the yellow tunic are blue. This one, it's drawn over the shoulder. So this shoulder's wrong. And then just a drawing exercise. Her body is round. What I mean by that is your torso is a tube, basically. Some of us are a little tubier than others. But Jean Grey is not chunky in the middle, but her body does still go around. It is not flat across the front. And so the belt is going to curve around her body. There is no curvature to this belt. And so it just flat across. Subtle little things, but again, makes me feel like, I don't know. It doesn't, either it's a Kirby drawing that was very rough, that somebody else inked and didn't correct the issues, or this is somebody, again, trying to mimic Jack Kirby's style and just not being an expert at it. I don't know, but all in all, pretty rough stuff. Well, with that, unfortunately, on a down note, that is the end of the issue. So that all said, let's cut over to the desk. We'll wrap this one up. Okay, so that's X-Men number 9. Fun to see the first X-Men versus Avengers crossover. We will see the X-Men and the Avengers butt heads numerous times throughout the history of the both series, but it's a lot of fun to see it now, especially when in these early days Jack Kirby is drawing both books. So it's fun to see that you have consistency with your characters, your designs, etc. One of the things that happens later as you get more books, more different artists, then as fans, we start to go, well, what happens when artist X draws this other group that they don't normally draw? How will they handle it? And that can be really hit or miss. Sometimes it's awesome. You have your favorite artist and you've always wanted to see them draw, again, let's say the Avengers, right? And now you get to see it even for a few pages and you're like, ooh, this is exactly what I was hoping for. There's other times where you go, this artist has no idea what the Avengers look like, and this is a hot mess. So, here we have consistency. There's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff, as with every comic. Overall, I think it's pretty good. There's some really great sequences there with the battle between the X-Men and the Avengers. From a rating, I'm going to give this a good 7 out of 10. It's a fun read. There's a lot of neat stuff. I could have, again, I mentioned there's panels that I think are a waste. The splash page to start with, the 6 panels of suiting up between Beast and Iceman, and the bit with Jean Grey stepping on a log. I would get rid of that, and I would add pages to that X-Men Avengers fight, because that's what people are paying money to read. So that's my 2 cents on that and what could have made this an even higher rated comic. But as I always say, I want to hear your thoughts. How did you feel about seeing this first meetup of these two iconic superhero teams? Do you have a favorite? Do you think the Avengers always win? I mean, anybody that's got Thor is a pretty overpowered team, but the X-Men are no slouches in their own right, and they work together really well. So what do you think? Is this a draw? Is this an X-Men win? Is this an Avengers win? What would happen? I want to hear your comments. I love your comments. So please drop me a line. Let me know what you think here in the comments of the video. In the meantime, thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe so that you can win free artwork. And I'll see you right here next week with more X-Men. Thanks.